and welcome back to Mariana Mas Books. My name is Mariana and today I am here with my September wrap-up, which mostly will be my shorty September wrap-up, but I did also read other books, some other shorties, and some other not so shorties. So, Shorty September was a readathon or reading challenge that went all through the month of September that was hosted by Sean and Bert at Past Storytime and Heather at Soggy Expat Book Nerd. Soggy Expat Book Nerd. The challenge consisted of reading short books under 200 pages or around, and there were 11 prompts that were very fun. I am going to go through all of the prompts and tell you which book I read for every prompt. Also, in the month of September, Jem from Read a Book Gem hosted the 30 in 30 challenge, and that one consisted of reading 30 books in 30 days. So when I saw that she announced the challenge, I really wanted to participate, but not reading 30 books because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do 30 in 30. But I like the spirit of the challenge, of challenging yourself to do something that is like a bit beyond what you normally do. They also have another way of participating where you could read 30 minutes every day, but that one wasn't really a challenge for me because I usually read every day anyway, and I usually read about an hour every day, so that one wasn't that much of a challenge. So what I decided to do was challenge myself to read more books than I normally do. And normally I read between 6 to 8 books, more or less, and this month I read 19 books. So I consider it a super successful challenge, and of course it had to do with the fact that I read a lot of short books. So the combination of the two challenges was perfect. If you saw my last video, which it wasn't my previous video, but if you saw my Shorty September TBR, you are going to realize that I didn't read exactly the books that I said. Some of the prompts I changed the book, and that's pretty normal for me when it comes to TBRs with challenges. My philosophy with TBRs, especially when it comes to challenges, is not really like in my head, the thing that is TBR, to be read, is not the book itself, but the prompt. So, for example, if one of the prompts is read a biography, and when I do my TBR, I say I'm going to read this biography, for me, the thing that I have to read, or my to be read thing, is a biography. So, if during the month I am not in the mood for that particular biography but for another one, then I will pick the other one up, and I still consider it fulfilling my TBR, because the TBR was the prompt, not the book itself. You know, the books are not set in stone. The spirit of the challenge is more the theme and the prompts, and that's the way I see it. So yeah, I don't consider it a failure when I don't read exactly the books that I said I was going to read, because what I aim for is to fulfill the prompts, not the specific books. But yes, let's move on to the books, and as I said, I'm going to start with the books I read for Shorty September. So the first prompt was Shorty Shorts, a book from the 70s or 80s. For this one, I read The Passion According to G.H. by Clarice Lispector, and this one was published in the 60s, so not precisely the 70s or 80s, but this one was from my Reading Women Challenge TBR. This book I gave 4 stars to. I It's a weird book. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't think I can. All I'm going to say is I can see why Clarice Lispector is considered such a brilliant author. It's one of those books that when you read it, you wish you could have been inside the author's brain when she wrote it. It's one of those books that when you finish, you go, what did I just read? But if you check out the blurb or the premise and you find it interesting, what I will say is don't try to understand the book. It's a book to lose yourself in the language, not so much to understand every single thing. And also, if you don't like cockroaches, maybe skip this one. The next prompt was Runway Fashion Shorts, a translated book. And for this one, I read the summer book by Tove Jansson, which was translated by Thomas Teal. This one I read after I saw it recommended by Sarah at Hardcover Hearts. It's really lovely. It's not a life-changing book, but it's very lovely. It's about the relationship between a little girl and her grandmother and their adventures at an island in the summer. And it doesn't have a specific story. It's more of vignettes. The next prompt was Granddad Shorts, and this was a book you've had a long time. For this one I read Steering the Craft, a 21st century guide to sailing the art of story by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a non-fiction book and it is basically a manual for writing. It is created as a course, so it's a course that she taught on writing, and it is created so that you could follow the course by yourself by reading the book. And it even encourages you, if you have a group of writers, you could read the book together, do the exercises together. It is excellent. I have never read Ursula K. Le Guin before. It's a strange book to start with. She's in my TBR. She's one of those bucket list authors. I really want to read her, and now that I read this one, I want to read her even more because she is so funny. So funny. I also have in my shelves a memoir. It's a collection of essays, sort of, by her called No Time to Spare. Now I want to read it even more after I finish this one because I loved her sense of humor. The next prompt was Bermuda Shorts, a book set in another country, and for this one I read The Queen of Jasmine Country by Sharanya Manivannan. I read this one also for the Reading Women Challenge. This one is about a famous Indian poet. I'm going to write the name in the screen because I don't remember her name, but she's a mystic poet, and it is a fiction book, but it imagines her life from childhood and how she could have become this famous poet. I really enjoyed it. It's a beautiful book, and yeah, I would recommend it. The next prompt was Half and Half Shorts. Read a book and then watch the movie, or read a book of a movie you've already seen. For this one, I listened to the audiobook of Passing by Nella Larsen, which was narrated by Robin Miles. And this one, I saw that they just recently did an adaptation for Netflix that is in black and white, and it looks really good. And I looked for the Netflix catalog in Mexico, and while it is not yet published, uploaded, available, it will be. It is in the catalog marked as a future release, so I haven't watched the movie, but when it releases, I will be watching it. The next prompt is Denim Shorts, a modern classic. For that one, I was going to read Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, which I was going to read for the Past It Classics book club. And I read the first chapter. and it was very good, very Mexican, which makes sense. But I wasn't really in the mood for it, so I ended up not reading it because I do want to enjoy that book when I read it. So I read the first chapter and then decided that it wasn't the right moment, and I ended up passing for this challenge as well. The next prompt was Hometown Shorts, a book set in or from the place where you live. And for this one I read Xanto, Novelucha, Libre by José Luis Zárate. This book is so strange, so strange. This is a absurdist short novel about the end of the world. So the end of the world is going to take place in Puebla, which is where I'm from. I had never read a novel set in Puebla, and it is also by an author from Puebla, so that was very cool that I found it. It is an absurdist novel, so it's ridiculous and hilarious, and it's about, as I said, the end of the world is going to happen in Puebla, and so someone summons El Santo, who is a very famous Mexican luchador, wrestler from Mexican Lucha Libre, which is Mexican wrestling, from like the 70s maybe, and he has they made a lot of movies of him like fighting vampires and fighting mummies and stuff. So this book was kind of like an homage to El Santo mixed with satire, political criticism. At one point there are spiders, white spiders that demand soup. As I said, it's ridiculous. Unfortunately, it's not translated, but if you do want to read something by him, because he seems to be a very interesting author that I didn't know about, I saw in other channels the book The Root of Ice and Salt, which is by him. I saw it recommended in other channels, and that one is about Dracula, I believe. The short blurb says, a reimagining of Dracula's voyage to England, filled with gothic imagery and queer desire. So if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead and read that one, because as I said, the one I read, Xanto, Novelucha Libre, which, by the way, just the title alone is genius, absolutely genius. I cannot translate it because it's untranslatable. It is a play on words that I can't translate. But trust me, it's genius and it's hilarious. If you like weird books, if you like that type of like strange fiction, which is not usually my type of book, but I really enjoyed this one because, as I said, since it's set in my hometown, it's very rooted in like the local idiosyncrasy, so I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's an author you can explore. He does have some translated work if you want to check him out and read a book by an author from the place that I am from. The next prompt was a Escort, a book that mixes genres or that doesn't fit into any genre. And for this one I read Afro-Cuban Tales by Lydia Cabrera, which is a short story collection that I also read for the Reading Women Challenge. For the prompt, read a short story collection by a Caribbean author. I gave this one 3 stars just because short stories are not really my thing, but they are very good. They are sort of like Yoruba inspired myths, fables, that kind of thing. So they are very good, but it's just I don't love short stories. Then the next prompt was Boxer Shorts, a comfort read, and as I said, I love romance, and for this one I actually read the one I said I was going to read, and I read Mating the Huntress by Talia Hibbert, which was one of my favorite reads of Shorty September and of the month, and it is about a werewolf who is mated to a huntress who hunts werewolves, so she is originally trying to kill him, and it goes from there, and it's very funny. The next prompt is Gym Shorts, a book to get your pulse racing. For this one, funnily enough, for this one I read a non-fiction, which is something that you don't necessarily think when you think about get your pulse racing. But and this one was very exciting. It's exciting. Even in the blurb, it's called a pulse-pounding narrative, and it is Lifeboat number 8, an untold tale of love, loss, and surviving the Titanic by Elizabeth K. If you watched my August wrap-up, you know that I also read a non-fiction book about the Titanic, which I really enjoyed. And when I saw this shorty, I thought, oh wow, that's perfect, because the part of the Titanic that made me really curious was precisely all the part about the lifeboats and what happens after the sinking. So this book is a narrative of the moment the Titanic hits the iceberg, and it goes from there, sort of like a minute to minute and place to place sort of thing. It is very pulse pounding narrative. It's very interesting, and I definitely recommend it if you are interested in knowing what happened in the Titanic. I think it's like less than 100 pages, and it's very good, it's very quick, I recommend it. And finally, Ripped Shorts, a slasher or murder mystery. This one I had the hardest time with because it's not usually my genre. So I had many I wanted to read. The one on my TBR, I wanted to read that one, but I was also thinking about my budget while choosing the books I read, because a lot of them I did buy. So in the end I ended up reading and loving. It was actually my favorite read of Shorty September, A Dead Gin in Cairo by P. Djeli Clark, which is sort of like a steampunk, fantastic murder mystery set in Cairo, and it goes from there. A gin shows up there, and it's like they are solving what happened. And then finally, I'm just going to go over the other books I read. The other shorties I read were Rumeisa, a Fairy Tale by Radija Hafiza, narrated by Tara Jafar, and that one I read also for the Reading Women Challenge for a middle grade, a Muslim middle grade. I love this one. If I don't have daughters or sons, but I would definitely buy it and read it with my younger cousins. It's lovely. It's a retelling, as you can probably tell from the title, very focused on friendship, and a very original retelling. I thought there were things that I've never read in a retelling before. Then I read The Vampire Takes a Wife, Supernatural Dating Agency number 1 by Andy M. Long. This is just a fun, ridiculous, paranormal romance. I was in a romance mood after reading Talia Hibberd's book. I'm not going to continue with the series, but it was fun. And finally, the final shorty that I read was River of Teeth by Sarah Gailey, which I listened to in audio, narrated by Peter Berkrot. And this is a funny story. I had it on my TBR since a while ago, but the other day my parents were telling me about a podcast episode they listened to where they talk about a true story about hippos in Colombia. Because when Pablo Escobar was this big drug lord in Colombia, he brought hippos for himself because he wanted exotic animals in his house, and he was a drug lord and he could do it. So he brought hippos and they reproduce, and apparently now there is a big problem of wild hippos in Colombia, which I thought was so random and hilarious, and one of those things that are from real life that you're like, well, you don't need fiction with this type of real life stories. But I remember this one, and this one is about hippos in the Wild West. So I really wanted to read it, and again, I'm not going to continue with the series, but because it also ends, like, it's a satisfactory end, and it was fun. Yeah, if hippos in the Wild West sounds like something you would like to read, go ahead and read it. It's a fun time. And finally, I'm going to mention the books that are not shorties that I finished in the book of September. The first one was The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, which I body read with Elle from Elle Thinks. We are just going to be reading the appendices in October, but we finished The Return of the King in September. I'm not going to talk about it because I am fully obsessed, and I am planning an exclusively Tolkien themed wrap up in the future, so I'm not going to talk about it. And then I finished Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chen. I was hopeful about this one. Unfortunately, it really disappointed me. I think the author doesn't have a clear stance on things, a clear point of view. She will say something, and then in the next chapter she will argument something that completely contradicts what she said in the previous chapter. So yeah, I gave this one 2 stars, and I wouldn't really recommend it, but some people really have hyped it up and recommended it a lot. So maybe check out other reviews if you are interested in it, and maybe don't listen to me. And finally, 2 more romance books. As I said, I was in a romance mood. The first one was Well Met by Jen DeLuca, which happens in a Renaissance fair. That one is very cute, and there are 3 books. The second one is already out. I don't know if I want to read the second one because I've heard it's not as good, but the third one comes out in October, and I really want to read the third one because it's the story of a character that I really loved from this first book. And then The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, which has been my favorite romance of the year by far. I absolutely loved it. It's a romantic comedy. It's set in a university. It's an academia setting. The heroine is a grad student, and the hero is a doctor. They are in the same department, but he is not her teacher or anything. I think it's supposed to be Star Wars fan fiction, but I don't watch Star Wars, so I don't know what characters they're supposed to be or anything, and without knowing anything, I just absolutely love this one. It is definitely going to be in my top 10 of the year, and yes. So that was my September wrap up. I'm sorry if I talked too fast. I don't know if I did. I had never wrapped up so many books. I have a lot of exciting reading plans for the fall, and video plans also, so I hope I can do them. Yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you did also Shorty September, what you read in September, what was your favorite book, all those fun things. And of course, everything I mentioned will be linked in the description box down below. So I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next week with another bookish video.